Hello and welcome back to Teal House Farm, and tonight we are going to make overnight sourdough discard cinnamon rolls. And this is a really neat recipe because it's a true overnight recipe. Sometimes when you see overnight recipes for breakfast sweets, what they mean is, well, most of it's going to rest overnight, but then you need to get up at 4 in the morning, punch down and knead your dough, and then let it second rise. That's not one of these recipes. It literally rests all night and it doesn't need kneaded in the morning. You can just get started rolling up your cinnamon rolls and bake them. So in the morning, you need about 30 minutes from, like starting to done, maybe 45 if you're kind of slow in the morning. So it's not one of those where you have to get up really early to continue the recipe. Anyway, we're gonna go ahead and get started. It's 7:30 at night. We're gonna do this now. They need to rest about 10 to 12 hours overnight. So this is the perfect timing because about 10 hours will be about 5:30 in the morning, right? Which is a little too early. So I'll probably get up around 6:30 to finish them, which will be right in the sweet spot, right at 11 hours. So here's everything you're gonna need. We will need a stick of butter, and this stick is frozen because you either need it really cold or frozen because we're going to grate it into the dough. I have about a third cup, this is a tiny bit more than a third cup, but that's fine, of sourdough discard, and we're using discard, not actual sourdough starter that's been fed, because if you use your fed starter, then you create a dough that does need a second rise with a punch down and all that craziness. So we have salt. I have poor man's buttermilk. So this is a cup of milk with a little bit of vinegar in it, but you can also do a cup of buttermilk. We'll need a heaping tablespoon of sugar, 2.5 cups of all-purpose flour, and I've got a bucket here to mix it up in. I'm just using this ice cream bucket because it was clean and available, so we'll use that. In the morning, we'll need some brown sugar, cinnamon, and butter to make the inside part of the cinnamon roll, and then we're also going to make a frosting. We'll do all of that in the morning. In the morning, we'll also need some baking powder and baking soda that we will add to the dough we're making tonight. You do not want to add it in the night. You need to let it the dough kind of like ferment overnight without the baking soda and baking powder in it, and then we'll mix it in the morning right before we bake to give us nice, fluffy cinnamon rolls. Anyway, let's get everything all mixed together, and I can show you what the dough looks like. Okay, to get started, we're just going to use our 2.5 cups of all-purpose flour. And we have our stick of very cold butter, and we're going to grate it into the flour. We want to work the butter in a little bit more, so I'm going to get out my bench scraper. You could also use a pastry cutter or 2 knives or a fork to just kind of cut the butter more into the flour until you get nice coarse crumbles. You can use your hands sometimes as well, but remember your hands are really warm. They're going to melt those little butter pieces, and that'll give us more of a mush than a crumble. So cutting it in with something cold like a bench scraper, pastry cutter, or some knives or forks is usually a better idea. There, that looks pretty good. Now we're going to add the rest of our ingredients that have already been out, and we're going to give it a mix. So we have 3/4 of a teaspoon of salt, a heaping tablespoon of sugar. The original recipe called for a tablespoon and a teaspoon, so I just do a heaping tablespoon. You could also use honey instead of sugar. We're going to add our milk and vinegar, or buttermilk if you have that, and then about 1/3 cup of sourdough starter, but if it's a little bit more, that's just fine. And this stuff is always so hard to get out of the jar. We're going to get our spatula and really give it a scrape. Okay, we're going to give it just a gentle mix. All mixed together. It is a pretty stiff dough. We're not going to knead it though. It looks kind of, crumbly or whatever. Just leave it like that. We'll do some more work with it in the morning, but for right now, we're covering it with a damp towel, and we're just going to leave it alone overnight. So I will see you first thing in the morning. Okay, we're back. Good morning. Here's what we need to finish up. We've got some flour for dusting the work surface, some brown sugar. We have baking soda, baking powder, cinnamon, and 4 tablespoons of melted butter. And let's go ahead and get these cinnamon rolls put together and in the oven. gooey and sticky, exactly the perfect amount of yummy. The only problem is this recipe only makes 9, so there's always 1 left over, which there's no way to split that 6 ways, so.
Gonna have to fight.
That means Daddy automatically gets it, right? That's the rule.
Yeah.
Hope you enjoyed. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you guys next time.